Hi guys, I'm gonna make a few videos about .NET Core and Angular 2 using the Devextreme and NG Bootstrap components. Gonna write a small web-based SQL manager since SQL is now running in Docker. I'm gonna make smaller videos than before so people can jump over the part that they already know and try to make it fast so people don't get bored. So I'll be using .NET Core 1.1, Angular 2 and 4 when it gets ready, Devextreme. And I have one video already out there about how to set up the dev and environment. And I'm gonna put the code on GitHub. So the first video is about setup. Here we go. First we need to install some tools. I recommend the ConEmu Windows Console Emulator because then you can have more consoles in one window. If I select new console, select the Git bus for example, and I want it 50% to the right, I can have like two consoles in one window, which is very handy. Then I recommend you install the Git tools from Git SCM, which is open source. We need Node.js and the Node Package Manager. I installed the latest version, the current version. And we'll be using Visual Studio 2017, and you can download it from visualstudio.com. So we can start to set up our environment. So first thing we need to set up is the .NET Core JavaScript services, which is on GitHub. We'll be using Yo and the generator ASP core generator, so I'll just copy it here. Here I can make the font a little bit larger. I will install globally Yo and the generator ASP net core SPA, but I already have it installed, so it will just update the current version. And now we have Yo and the ASP Netcore SPA generator installed, so we can just make a new folder here. Go into that folder and run Yo. We have only this generator installed, so we'll select the ASP.NET Core SPA, and it will ask us to which framework we want to use. We have here different frameworks available. We will be using Angular. We don't need any test at this time, so we'll select no here. Project name, and now it will generate the necessary files. Run yarn install. Yarn is actually faster than npm because it catches the packages on your machine. And then it will run restore, .NET Core restore. And now it is finished, so we can just type, I'll make this a little bit bigger, just type .NET run, and it will run on localhost 5000. So here we have our standard application running with counter and fetch data, and we can start working on changing it. So we will open up Visual Studio 2017 and open up our project. So we'll select from here and open up the CS project file. And in the Solution Explorer, we get our project ready. It will check if all the packages are restored, etc. And we are up and running, and what we can do here, we can run it in IIS Express, or we can run it as a standalone .NET run. If we run it as IIS Express, we can set breakpoints and stuff like that in Visual Studio in the TypeScript code. But if we run it independently, then we have to manage our debugging and breakpoints in the browser. So the first thing that we can do is to go into the client app and in the components. We can remove the counter and fetch data folder because we won't be using that. We'll just focus on the home component, and we can see here in app module that we have references to these folders, these components here from fetch data and counter, so we can just remove it from here also, and from here. So we have the nav menu also, we don't need that one, so I will remove that also. So can delete that folder from here. And also remove it from the router. So now we only have the home component active in our client app. And we won't be using the server side rendering also, so we can just delete the boot server from here. It makes our app faster, and Devextreme doesn't support the server side rendering. So we'll remove the app, and then we have to go to Webpack definitions, remove the server bundle config from here, and remove the server bundle config from build phase, and also in the vendor site we won't be using the server bundle config either, so I will remove it from here and from here. So now we have removed the server side rendering, and in our view in our home view, here's where the pre-render module is loaded in, so we won't be using that. So I will just paste in some better looking code. Here we have from Font Awesome some spinner that we will put in the absolute position of 50% left and 50% top, so it will be in the middle. So now we can import the Devextreme and Devextreme Angular, Font Awesome, and NG2 Bootstrap. So I'll just go to the command prompt, break out of our app, and we'll paste in some npm install of Devextreme, Devextreme Angular, Font Awesome, and NG2 Bootstrap. And now that is finished, so we can go into our app and make some changes. First thing to do is to import our Devextreme module into the app module. So we will do it from here. We will import Devextreme module from Devextreme Angular, and then we will use that module here in the imports. Next thing to do is to go into the Webpack vendor file and import some CSS that we need to use here. Just do it after the Bootstrap import. So here we have our common Devextreme style and the light compact style and the Font Awesome that we are using in our index page. Now we should be ready to use some of the Devextreme components. So we'll go to the Devextreme page, jsdevexpress.com, go into the demos. You will find the data grid component. We will look at the source code here, and here we have the Angular code for this simple grid here. So what we'll do is we'll just copy paste this code here, go to our home component, to the HTML. We will just remove this with the data grid, and what you see here is we have a DX data grid, and it has an input parameter of customers, so we need to define customers in our component. So we'll go into our component and define customers as any array to make it simple to begin with, and it will equal to an empty array. We'll make a constructor here also, and we need to fill the customer with some data, so we'll just go to the demo again where they have been service with some customers. We'll just take the first two here, and we will say that this, which is our component customers, our parameter here, will equal to an array of objects. So we have here two objects, so I'll just say that that's enough for this little exercise. So now we have defined the customers as an array of two objects that is imported into our grid. So we will try to run it and see what happens. But before we run it, we need to go to our command prompt, and we are now in the TheSqlManager folder, and we need to run Webpack because we'll give it a config file. So we'll use the vendor file because we added some CSS and things into the vendor file, so we will have to build it again, so that our app will be aware of the new CSS files. And one thing we need to do before we run our app again is to go to the properties where the launch settings are, because if we run it as the TheSqlManager, we don't get the development environment variables defined, so we'll just copy it from the IIS Express part and paste it in here to our TheSqlManager. So we will define the ASP.NET Core environment as a development, so we will get the development version of the app. So now we'll run it up and go to the browser again. And here is how our app was before, so we'll just add some debugging tools here, and we will do a refresh of the page and see what happens. Here we see our spinner, it's working. And in the console we get some errors because we are using the nav menu that we have already removed. So I'll go into the app folder where the app component is. And what we will do is we will just put the router outlet will be the only thing that will display at this time. Save that, and then we see that our app is rebuilding, and we get it up to date, and we get our grid here. The spinner is still spinning because the component was hot loaded here, but if we refresh this page, we should be able to see that the spinner goes away when the app comes in. So here we have our good grid working, and just to show some extra functionality, we can add a sample editing. If we wanted batch editing to our grid, the only thing we need to do is to add some properties to the grid. So just to show you, I'll take this batch editing part here, we'll put it into our grid just as a property here. So we'll just paste it between the open and close of DXDataGrid like this. Batch mode is batch and allow updating is true. Save that. And then we'll just refresh our page. And what we see now is we get up here the the two buttons for saving and cancel. So if we go here, start to change this cell, go here, and we see that turns out and the save and cancel buttons get activated. So if I press cancel, I'll get back to my normal grid, and if I press save, I have saved my changes. The last part of the setup will be to put the responsive design into our app. So we will get something like this that has one layout when the screen is small, and another layout when we have a medium or big, so we can change the layout. So I'm just using this responsive box demo here. So what I will do is I will just copy the code from the HTML here, from the demo, and replace the grid with this one. We also need CSS for the home component, so we will add a new file here with the CSS design. So we have a style sheet here. We call it home component CSS. So that gets under the home component HTML, and we just need to import it here just like we did in the app component. We need to take the style URL and import the CSS. So we will do that. Instead for app we'll use home, and in the CSS file we will also copy it from the demo, make it easy, copy from here and paste it in here, and we will just remove this deep definition here because we won't be using that. And what we need to do also here in the component itself, the home component, will not be, we'll use the code that is in the TS file here. We can see that we need to take in the responsive module here. We want to change any of the sign. We need one function here, it's called screen, which returns 700. If we have less than 700 in width, we will return small, otherwise we will return large. So we will, instead of, we can just remove this constructor here because we are not using the data anymore. So, so the screen should actually come after the constructor if we are following all the coding rules. And what we see here in the HTML, we have this function here called screen, and you see the brackets is the input, this parameter is taken as an input and output parameter. So this saved in the component. So now we'll just try to see what happens with our app. We see we get the necessary layout, but we don't see any CSS, nothing like that, so we need to figure that out. We refresh the page, we'll see what happens. You can see here that the height is not defined here. So what we need to do is we need to go to the layout component, which is here, and we need to set in the HTML, we have to say style height 100%. So we want to use the 100% of the HTML and 100% of the body. And if we save this and refresh once more, we should see something looking a little bit better. Yeah. So now we see we have our header, left, content, right, and footer. And if we see how it changes to one column when we go to the mobile width. But here we see also in the HTML component that it says single column screen. So when it gets too small, it wants us to be single. So I'm going to remove the footer, the right bar, and make the header to a fixed width. So I have that definition here. So I'm just going to paste it in here to make this a little bit shorter. So, sorry, it's not quite the thing I want to do here. Copy and paste. So here we can see I set the ratio of the first row with a base size of 50 and the ratio of the second row to 1, so it fills up the rest of the space. And with the column I set it to 1 part of the page, and the content, when it is large, it goes to 2. So if we see here now, we got header, left, and content. And if we go to a smaller, we see that the header keeps its size, but the left bar goes away. It's because the left bar, when it goes to small, I put the location of the left bar here, small, I put it into 2, row number 2, which doesn't exist, so it disappears. So you can get this code from GitHub if you want to look at it. So this ends the setup section. We have a header, left bar, and content. Next we will go set the header up and left bar with a tree view in next video.